Hi, this is Tom again. It's the first week of April. Last week I had another trip, not your normal work trip that I normally have, but a seminar. And I had some obstacles I had to overcome, so let's take a look at my weigh-in this week and how I overcame those obstacles. Alexa, what day is it?
It's Saturday, April 7th.
So this is interesting. Today's weight is a little bit more than last week's weight. But if you remember last week, when I saw that I had lost 2.8 pounds in only 1 week, I knew something was up. And even though I followed my rules for weighing myself on Saturday mornings, under the same conditions, under the same time, I knew that on Friday night I had not eaten or drank as much fluids as I normally do. And so I thought a lot of this 2.8 pounds was actually probably a little bit of dehydration. Maybe not dehydration in the technical sense, but I had less water in me than I normally do. And now this week, when I put in 8.42 pounds, it says I went up 1/10 of a pound, but pretty much that's about the same thing. And now I look between over 2 weeks, I've lost 2.7 pounds, which is about 1.3 pounds or so per week. And that makes a lot more sense to me. So I think my hypotheses last week that this was not really fat loss, but some fat loss and some water loss is true. And I'm right back on schedule again. So this brings up 2 points. No matter what diet you're on, whether it's the query theory or some other one, it's really important to weigh yourself consistently, but not too often. Once a week is what I recommend so you can see the trends. If you try to weigh yourself more often than that, there's just too much variation of what can happen. For example, let's take a look at this web page that I have. This is how to lose 30 pounds basically in a day or two. And what this article talks about is athletes who have to compete in a weight division. And typically, according to this, what a lot of athletes do is they weigh a lot more than what they're supposed to. So they have an advantage during the competition. But a day or a day and a half before the weigh-in, they pretty much dehydrate themselves and they lose a lot of weight. So the weigh-in, they're in the weight class, and then because the weigh-in is about 24 hours before the actual competition, then they gain it all right back. So they have a competitive weight advantage during the competition. What it's saying here is if you weigh 200 pounds, 120 of those pounds is water. About 60% is what I read a lot. 60% of your weight is water. And so by having excess water in your system, you can weigh a lot more than what you think you should. And if you have a lot less water in your system, you're going to weigh a lot less than what you normally would. And going back to here, this is exactly what happened, is that I didn't drink as much fluids on a Friday night. And on Saturday morning, I had appeared to have lost 2.8 pounds, but actually I just lost maybe a pound of fat and maybe 2 pounds or close to water. And this is something you can realize if you look at trends that something is up. It's important to know that if a number looks too low to question it, and if the number doesn't look low enough to be able to question it, and just think about what did you do maybe the day before the weigh-in that would affect it. Now I want to take a look at the obstacles that I had this week, and it was definitely drinks at night. I went to a seminar this week instead of a normal work week, and there was meet and greets and all that kind of good stuff, and I drank more beer than what I would normally do. Overall, I had about 8 beers. Let's say 4 on Monday and 4 on Tuesday is what it was, and that would be more than what I said I was going to allow myself. Back here in excess eating, these are things that I said I was going to reduce or completely eliminate. These are actually just examples, but this one turns out to be true. But I told myself I was allowed to have beers. I just didn't want to overdo it day after day. So beers are not on my eliminate list. They are my reduced but not eliminate list. So just because I had some beers doesn't mean it was a bad thing, but it was more than what I would typically want. So what I did was try to figure out how many more beers did I have than I should have. So if I had 8, I said I allowed myself 2, which means I had 6 more beers this week than what I normally would. Is that absolutely true? I don't know. It was just a guess. I know I had 8 beers, but how many do I allow myself? That's a judgment call. So, but we'll go with that. Now, excess calories. So initially I'm from PA, and there's a couple things about people from PA that you should know. Is, first of all, if you're from PA, you say you're from PA. You never say you're from Pennsylvania. And the other thing is that if you go into a central Pennsylvania bar or restaurant and you say, give me a lager, this is what you get. Even though lager is a very generic term for beer, when you go into Pennsylvania and you say, give me a lager, you're going to get a Yuengling lager. So this is what I was drinking. And they say 140 calories per serving. I just rounded off to 150 for this example. So if I had 6 beers, more than I wanted, 6 times 150 is 900 calories. So how did I deal with this 900 calorie excess? Well, I decided to walk again. I walked that same path that I showed you last week, which is about 300 calories. And then I also walked a different path on another day, but that was also about the same length, so another 300 calories. So I purposely exercised to try to eliminate this excess over here. Now I didn't get there. I had excess of 900 calories. I walked 600 calories, so I had 300 calories for the week that I wish I didn't have, but I do. I can't deny that. This looks a whole lot better than this over here. If initially I thought I had 8 more beers than I wanted, let's see, that would have been 8 times 150. Maybe I would have thought I had 1,200 excess calories during the week, but I knocked it down to 300, which is a lot better. So when I questioned myself at the end of the week, is there something I could have done better? Yep, I could have had 300 less calories. But I feel better about that than saying I had 1,200 calories. So that ends this week, but there's 2 things here that I want to go over. Next week, I will talk about how I feel about exercise when losing weight. And then the following week after that, I'm going to go and talk about this statement right here, which is, I think, a really cool statement. And this is right before the match. They talk about the only thing that matters for the weigh-in is how much food physically weighs, not the calorie content. Now, you might think I disagree with this, but I don't. So in 2 weeks' time, we'll talk about why the calorie content does not matter for how much you weigh, which is very interesting. So until next week, goodbye.